Hey everyone, welcome back to She Burps Podcast. I am your host, Brook, Wright.
Hey everyone, welcome back to She Burps Podcast. Today's guest is Jackiem. Hi Jackiem.
Hey Brooke, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
So Jackiem is a saxophone player, he's an author and a producer. So can you tell our listeners what inspired you to play the saxophone, to start playing the saxophone?
Yeah, the saxophone is I'm known in the contemporary jazz world as a saxophone player. And I started playing saxophone when I was 14 years old. It wasn't my first choice. I actually wanted to play the drums, but when I was joining the high school band, they already had enough drummers. So after messing around with a bunch of instruments that I didn't really care about, I came in contact with a very special instrument, the saxophone. I thought it was really expensive when I first saw it, and it was all these buttons on it, and it looked really challenging. So I told the music teacher, show me how to play that one. It was just like an adventure. I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. But a couple of weeks later, turns out, I found passion with the saxophone and completely forgot about the drums.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, I later on started doing solos, and I kind of wanted to. I love attention, so I was like, let me do the solo. So I was always the first person that wanted to do the solo. Fortunately for me, my music teacher thought I had a really good tone on the saxophone, and I was learning pretty quickly. So I remember him, Mr. Adams. I graduated from Fowler High School, by the way, in Syracuse, New York, and I'm from Norfolk, Virginia, which is where I was born. So I remember my music teacher said, "Okay, we want you to take the solo for this Whitney Houston song, 'Saving All My Love for You.'" And I did it 100 times in band class, but when it was actually time to do it, when all the school was watching, I was so nervous to play that solo and to stand up. I think my knees were shaking. It was the first solo that I ever played on a saxophone. And, since then, I've toured to over 100 countries. I performed with the likes of India Arie, Marcus Miller, George Duke, Gene Carn, Ronnie Laws, Angela Bofield, many people that I've toured, and I've put out 8 albums as a saxophone player. Again, totally forgot about the drums.
That's cool. So with all of those people that you toured with, have any of them give you valuable advice, them being professional singers and musicians?
Always. I always take every single show so super serious. I remember I was going on stage. I was opening for, I think it was Najee at the time. And I think he said, just have fun. Because I don't think I looked like I was having fun, because I think I wanted everything perfect, and I wanted to be perfect, and I wanted to sound amazing. But just going into the mindset of don't take yourself so seriously allowed me to kind of be free to have fun with the instrument. And by me having fun, the audience would have fun. So I think that was a great piece of advice.
And that's cool. It's great to have those kind of influences in your life that also do what you do. So that's
exactly.
Pretty cool. It is. So what do you like most about playing music?
I'm a writer, and a producer and a performer. I started writing my own songs about maybe 3 to 4 years after playing the saxophone. And writing music is like its own thing, because literally it's like you're the god of whatever this music that's about to happen. You can create anything that you want, and use your imagination and set your imagination free as a songwriter. So I found passion in writing my own music. I went on to write 2 #1 hit songs on the Billboard. I'm Waiting for You was #1 for 12 consecutive weeks on the Billboard chart, and Take Me There was #1 for 6 consecutive weeks on the Billboard chart. And I've written maybe up to 10 top 5 singles. So writing has been a huge part of my musical journey since high school. I'm not going to give my age away now, because high school was a really long time ago. It was in the 90s, and that's about as much as what I'll tell you. but you know, it's challenging. It's fun. It can be frustrating at times, but it's the most freeing thing, you know, that you could ever do. Is write your own music, and even playing, you know, playing a saxophone. When you play an instrument that you really enjoy,
Mhm.
it's just like the sky is the limit, and
Mhm.
people tend to respond to your passion, you know, that
Mhm.
you show them from the stage.
Wow. I just, wow. I don't understand how y'all do it. Like musicians that play instruments, because I played the flute. I was terrible. I stopped. And my brother, he played the trumpet for all 4 years of high school and then just got out of it. Like, just stopped
Mhm.
doing it. I'm like, you were very good on the trumpet. Why did you stop? Like, he was really good. And I'm like,
Wow.
I can't read music. So I'm like,
Yeah, you know, I meet a lot of people who have played music in high school or played in college and they don't play anymore. You know, the thing about playing a musical instrument like the saxophone or the trumpet, you know,
mhm,
most people are into sports, and most of the young kids are into a lot of other things, and
right.
they get a lot of peer pressure pulling them away from musical instruments a lot of times, and
Yeah.
they feel like maybe sometimes it's not cool. But let me tell you, playing the
Mhm.
saxophone is the coolest thing. You know, standing on stage in front of, you know, 15,000 people and
Yeah.
everyone's listening for your first note is the coolest
Mhm.
thing you could ever do in your entire life. Trust me.
That is cool. That is cool. Because have you heard of the musician Maze
I'm sorry, who?
Maze I don't think I'm pronouncing it right. I'll spell it for you. It's Masego. He plays the
I
saxophone.
I think I've heard of the name. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so. Yeah.
Like that's my favorite instrument to hear is the saxophone, like live. And then I did Scott Page, he's a saxophone player too for Pink
Mhm.
Floyd.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
that's like my favorite instrument to hear. Like it's so soothing, it's so relaxing and calm, and it like calms you down. Like
Yes.
I,
When you learn how to play it correctly, of course.
yes, 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 yes.
It wasn't the case for me my first couple of weeks playing the saxophone.
It,
Well, even my first year. I think I was playing really, really loud. And you could hear me in science class upstairs. You know, I was just blowing it like I don't know. It was just loud, really loud.
that's funny.
You know, but I mean, I learned how to control it. My
Mhm,
thing is, I like to make my instrument sound as close to a vocalist as possible,
mhm.
because I really want to reach people. You know, I want to reach your soul when I
Yeah,
want people to feel me.
yeah, I definitely feel that. So, can you describe your creative process when you write new music?
You know, it's interesting because I'm also an author,
Hmm.
and I started writing my own stories while I was on tour.
Hmm.
And I put out my first novel, Zaria, which
Hmm.
is a teenage science fiction novel. And one of the things I learned from writing that novel was it feels like when I'm writing and producing my own album because
Hmm.
it's like you're using. I feel like I'm using the same creative muscles, except for with literature,
Hmm.
like with music, like my creative process. If I hear a melody
Hmm.
that comes to my head, I try to record it as fast as possible, like using my iPhone, and then I'll bring it into the studio and see if I can make sense of it with my keyboards
Hmm.
and try to see if I can think of, do I want this to be up tempo? Do I want it to be down tempo? You
Hmm.
know, who's the audience, and what's the purpose behind this melody, and does it feel good to play? You know, that's the mindset that I put myself in when I'm writing songs.
Hmm.
And sometimes, you know, I'll just sit down and start messing with the keyboard and or start
Hmm.
playing the saxophone, and then just some cool stuff will start happening, and I'll just go with the flow, you know.
Wow.
When it comes to writing stories, because Zaria was my first experience with
Hmm.
writing literature. I've
Oh.
since written a couple of more stories since then, but it was like my first test at it. And,
Mhm.
you know, I felt like, you know, your first draft is like you're putting just all of your ideas out there. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's just a bunch of stuff on paper.
That's
You know,
true.
it's a kind of like a song a little bit where you're just trying to rush through the first melody and just try to hurry up and get it down, because the thing is you want to get this stuff down as quick as possible so that you don't, forget. That's why I think that first draft, when it comes to writing, that's where you're getting all of these amazing ideas, and there's no rules. You're not thinking about grammar. You're not thinking about editing or any of those things. You're just thinking about getting your ideas down on paper. It's the same process with writing songs too, so it's like you just want to kind of hurry up so that you can come back and start making sense of whatever you just recorded.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a lot of work. Like, I didn't think it was that much work. Like, I'm like,
no, I think everybody's process is different. It's not a lot of work, honestly. I mean, when you love what you do, it really isn't any work. I mean, because I love playing. So I'm just in the studio and I'm playing, and then some cool stuff is happening, and I'm like, well, let's record some of that cool stuff that's happening.
That's cool. So you mentioned that you was an author, and I mentioned that too. So can you tell us about your recently released book, Minor Assassin? Can you tell us what inspired it and what's it's about?
Well, absolutely. Let me just mention my first novel, Zaria, because Zaria is so different than Minor Assassin, and they're kind of in two different genres a bit. So Zaria is my very first novel. It's basically a teenage girl is trying to find the science that her father was involved in that went missing. This is on another planet, so there's flying drones, skyscrapers. A lot of the characters are hybrids of humans and reptiles and different things like that. So it's got that kind of Star Wars feel to it, a little bit of Avatar feel to it. But she's a coding person, and she never knew what happened to her father, but her father was on to something that was about to happen to their planet, planet Cygnus, where someone wanted to do something really bad with the DNA, and it would kill a lot of people, but they shut him up and put him in jail for a long time. All of a sudden, Zaria grows up and she's asking questions to really powerful people, military leaders and different things like that. Turns out she turns the world military against her. So now it's like, but she's finding out things and she's making allies. She also creates a hoverboard, calls it Sochi. She decks it out and it can communicate with her, and because she's really good at coding, and she's flying on this thing throughout the desert. So it's a whole lot of adventure in Zaria. I think people will love that. Minor Assassin, which is my most recent novel, this also is a teenager, but this one is more real world. It's a teenager decides to take the law into his own hands because a tragic event happened when he was 8 years old, where there was a home invasion, and his parents were working for this billionaire Asian guy, where they were rescuing people from human trafficking. Turns out his parents rescued the wrong girl, and they came to the house to reclaim their prize. And in the process, the parents gets killed, and little John, he's hiding away in a pantry, as quiet as possible as he watches his parents try to fight for their lives. He gets whiffed off to Japan at 8 years old, and he's thinking about his sister, who was also captured that day, and he wants to go back to Las Vegas to find his sister and avenge his parents. So he becomes this ruthless fighter at 15 years old, and he knows how to fight and kill. He comes back to Las Vegas, and he wants to find his sister, and he wants to find the man who caused him harm. So that's what Minor Assassin is about. The catchy thing about Minor Assassin is he's it's a violent book, but he's killing bad dudes, trafficking dudes. Turns out that he's getting to them before the detectives are getting to him. So the detectives are following his trail as they're looking for these bad dudes, but every time they get to the bad dudes are dead, and they're trying to figure out who's doing this.
That sounds cool too.
Yeah. Wow. So that's Minor Assassin.
So about your first book, Zaria, you said?
Yes, Zaria.
That one, it says book 1. So are you working on book 2?
Yes, Zaria is. I'm working on the series, which will start after book 1, which is what everyone has read already, and then it's going to go right into the series. Part 2, which will be these will be shorter stories, so it'll be spread out over the course of few years, I think, before the entire story is over. But yes, I'm almost done with episode 2. It's hard when you're touring
Yeah.
to get a lot of it done, because it's like you're going into the music mindset and into the writing mindset. So it's like when you get on tour, especially since the pandemic, because
Mhm.
that's kept us home for a long time. So I am really excited to be back out and performing, but
Yeah.
I'm also anxious and itching to finish Zarya. So this
sounds
or the
like
second episode. So be on the lookout for that.
and that sounds like a really great book because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and that's why my mouth was all open the whole time using when I'm like, but
Yes.
yeah, that sounds really good. Like, have you ever thought about writing, like turning it into a graphic novel? Because that would be pretty cool too. Because I like the artwork on the cover. I love it. So I was like,
Yeah, I wanted to create some of the characters that are really interesting
mhm,
in the story. I mean, there's one character who his skin is like a reptile, and he
mhm,
has like hair on his back, and when he gets angry, his skin changes color when he's
mhm,
speaking, depending on his emotions. So and I think that there's a lot of potential, even for some of the vehicles, like
yeah,
the airboard, which is Sochi, which she went to a junkyard of all of these thrown away drones from the big city, and she put together her own board and used her own coding that she understood to create her own hoverboard.
mhm.
So even that is kind of cool because it communicates with her nav wrist and lets her know if she's being chased by air bikers.
Wow.
so, it's one of those kind of stories.
Wow, I love it. I love it. So did you come up with the cover? Like, did someone design it for you? Like,
Yeah. I did have an illustrator
mhm,
that I worked with the cover, and I kind of gave her um, the idea of what I wanted her to look like.
mhm,
Um, and she did some sketches for me, and then turned it into a real kind of a 3D. I'm working on the next cover, which will be a more close-up picture of Zarya,
mhm,
and even some more illustrations of her airboard Sochi, because the airboard, it becomes a big part in
mhm,
episode 2, because her airboard becomes self-aware and
mhm.
starts to be able to communicate with other technical devices, and just becomes a really powerful thing she didn't even know she made. So
Yeah, I
so
love it.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that book out.
Yes.
So I
Thank you.
want to thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast today and chatting with me.
Thank you. It's really been a pleasure. And if people want to find out more about my books, just go to joinerbookclub.com,
Mhm.
and you'll be able to find all my books. I also finished a new series called Time Lab. You can read about that on my book club. If you
Wow.
want to go and learn about my music, just go to JackieemJoyner.com.
Mhm.
You can follow me on Instagram at JackieemJoyner.
Okay, on your website, we can also see your tour dates too, right? Okay.
Yes. You can see if I'm going to be coming to, where are you? Louisville, Kentucky. Is
Yeah,
that?
yeah, a little
Yeah,
second.
I'm not sure if we're going to make it there in 2022. We'll see, but yeah, you can see my whole tour schedule right on my website, JackieemJoyner.com.
Okay, thank you so much. You have a great day.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to my interview with Jackie Joyner. I mean, Jackiem Joyner. I apologize. So, if you would like to check out his music and his tour dates, he does jazz, and I love it. So, you can check out his music on his website. He's also on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. It basically anywhere you get your music, stream your music from, or download your music from. He's pretty good. So I'm a huge fan of jazz and music like that. So I hope you all check out his music and his books. If you want to check out any of his books, they are available on Amazon, and you can also go on his website, which I've linked within my website. So if you go on She Blurbs podcast under my podcast section and you look for his name, You can view all of his websites as well as a bio about him, and feel free to share, comment, and like. I hope you all have a great day. Make great choices. Bye.